Messy Situation, Miscommunication, and Academic Probation. It's the latest episode of The Connors. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It, and welcome to my Connors review. We are on episode 15 now of season 4, and winding the season down. I don't know exactly how many episodes we're getting. My guess would be 20, because I believe that is what Wednesday Night Companions, The Wonder Years, and Home Economics were both signed on for this season. But in any event, we have a new episode this week and next week, so that's always nice. And this is called Messy Situation, Miscommunication, and Academic Probation. Before we get into this week's episode, I do want to welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding my video. And I want to thank everybody who watched last week's video, well, I guess 2 weeks ago now, but the last episode, which was triggered. In just under 2 weeks, it is already one of my top 30 videos of all time, and I've had this channel for about 8 years. So obviously a lot of people clicking on that episode and wanting to hear my thoughts, and so I really do appreciate it. Check out all of my Connors videos dating back to the Roseanne season 10 revival, and then every Connors episode since then, and as well the Roseanne seasons. I've reviewed all of those from back in the day as well. So anyway, let's get into tonight's episode. So the titles of these, Messy Situation, Miscommunication, Academic Probation I know about, so we can start there maybe. But Messy Situation and Miscommunication could be a few different things in this episode. There's a lot going on, but the main focal point is going to be Becky and her teacher, Glenn, who have been dating in secret and were almost found out a couple of episodes ago, but Becky sort of played it off. But here we find out that no, as a matter of fact, one of the sensual texts that she sent him about, wanting to see him grade papers naked, was sent to the TA as well, the teaching assistant, because they were in this, chat group together. Now, I don't particularly find it believable that neither of them would realize that she sent that text to the group chat. But whatever. I guess we'll go along with it for the sake of the bit. But in any event, the TA went to the dean, and the dean essentially fired Glenn. So he is now free to work on his book, except that he has no idea what he wants to write about, what he wants to say, nothing. He is a blank slate, has no clue, and at first he finds this exciting, and then quickly realizes that he's in over his head, does not know what he's going to even write about. So Becky realizes that this is a major problem because, she's not even really in love with this guy. They've been dating for a couple of months, but she doesn't really know him all that well. And Darlene points out, look, if he's already showing you a side of him that you don't really care for, maybe break it off, before it's too late. You're on this, kind of sinking ship already. Time to jump off. So in any event, she does try, though, very hard to keep Glenn motivated. She almost gives him like assignments of like, okay, I want to see 3 story ideas and 3 paragraphs describing what the book would be or what the chapters would be. And she gets Ben in on the action as well. So I love seeing Ben always. So he's back, and he comes to the stew place where they're working, her and Jackie, and basically says, look, I've had writer's block before. I used to work, in the magazine industry. So let's, throw some ideas out. And it's just not happening. Nothing is really, happening for Glenn. So Becky decides to go to the dean herself and sort of plead her own case. But not only does she get Glenn his job back and herself on academic probation, which is obviously much less of a punishment than him getting fired, but it's sort of like a double-edged sword. It's sort of like, well, I got your job back by saying that, I made a mistake and this was just all in my fantasy world and, it wasn't meant, for you. And the dean, I guess, believed it. But in that, she's like, we got to stop this. We can't keep sneaking around. This is what is right. And so we're not going to do that anymore. Personally, I didn't have an issue with the relationship. We've talked about this, in the last few episodes, because, obviously, well, the last episode Triggered, he was not in, but the few before that, obviously there could be some sticky situations there. But look, Becky is in her 40s. The professor is about the same age. He is the only person who teaches this particular class that she needs in order to get her degree. So, like, to be honest, I really didn't see an issue with it. It's not like she's some 20 something and he's 50. They're both pretty similar age, and it makes sense. So I was fine with the relationship, but I'm also fine that they're ending it, because the thing I didn't quite get about it is she's not supposed to be dating anybody under the first year of AA. We've learned this when she was sort of talking to that Michael guy, the old classmate of hers, earlier in the season. So that was my red flag on it, is that maybe she shouldn't be dating anybody. But in terms of the relationship itself, I didn't mind. And I do like that actor. I forget it's Matt something, but he's from Veep and Upright Citizens Brigade and many things. But in any event, we probably won't be seeing him anymore. Although I guess he is still her teacher, technically. So we may see something else with him coming up. But maybe we'll just end that sort of storyline there. So that could be a part of the messy situation as well. But let's go over to the B plot, which is Dan and Chuck. This is my favorite portion of the episode. So Chuck and Anne-Marie, date back to the early days of Roseanne. And actually, someone who is binge watching all of my Connors videos commented just last week about, I got some things factually incorrect about the timeline and, where they know people from. I thought maybe Anne-Marie worked with them at Wellman Plastics. I couldn't remember. So, and by the way, I always appreciate, if I get something wrong, please let me know in the comments, because I do these videos, as you can tell, just kind of off the cuff, stream of consciousness. I don't do meticulous research, and there is so much useless TV knowledge in my brain, I can't remember all of the intricate details sometimes. So I never mind if you guys want to correct me there in the comments below. But anyway, it's funny that we had just sort of had that comment about Anne-Marie back on, I think, one of my season 3 videos, because she's sort of binging as she goes. I think it's a she. I don't actually know. But in any event, it's interesting that we have then a Chuck and Anne-Marie episode here. So Anne-Marie was not in it, but we learn that she has fallen ill, and Chuck is basically falling apart because of that. And Chuck, played by the great James Pickens Jr., who we know on Grey's Anatomy, and I think he is still on. I think he's one of like 3, maybe 4 original people that are still on, because you've got Meredith Grey, you've got Chandra Wilson, who plays like the head nurse, or I stopped watching it 15 years ago, so I don't know, but I think she's the head nurse or something. And then he's like the main guy. I think he's still on the show, but in any event, I always love seeing him as Chuck, because I've always loved that character. I always liked seeing him, at the poker games and stuff at the Connor house. But he is going through a crisis here, and he does not know A, what to do, and B, he's too proud to reach out to anybody. So Dan had been trying to get a hold of him for something else for a couple of weeks and wasn't hearing back. And so, some of the members of the household are like, why don't you just stop up, and check on him and see what's going on. Last he knew, maybe Chuck and Emery were sailing their boat around, and maybe he wasn't near a phone, whatever. But he decides to go with Darlene to see Chuck, and yes, indeed, the place is a pigsty. We learn about Anne-Marie's illness, and Chuck then is like, look, I'm good. I got my son coming over pretty soon. If you don't mind, get going here. And it's interesting. At first, he doesn't even want to say anything about Anne-Marie. They come to the door, and he doesn't even want to let them in, but Darlene sort of finagles her way in by saying she has to go to the bathroom. So that's why we learned about all of that. And then they basically, Darlene specifically, convinces Dan to not listen to that. And in fact, she mentions she just talked to Chucky Jr., and he's not even in the state anymore. So him coming over and helping is not really going to happen. So Dan's like, you know what? Chuck doesn't want my help. I told him to call if he needed me. He hasn't, this and that. And, I think this is a very common thing with certainly men specifically, but older men too. Guys in their 60s and 70s that grew up sort of in this more era of like, men are independent and men can do it all, and they're too proud to have emotions and too proud to reach out for help and all of that kind of thing. And Dan and Chuck are certainly of that age. I don't know specifically how old John Goodman is, but he's got to be pushing 70, right? Mid 60s at least. So they're certainly in that time frame. And so plot wise, it made total sense. But Darlene was like, look, the only reason you were able to even, move on from mom dying is that you had all of us. Chuck has nobody. Go see him. And so Dan does. And it gave me, I think, one of the best scenes in this entire season. And I got, as much as I got people watching the last video, the Triggered episode, there were a lot of comments that did not care for the episode. They weren't necessarily bad-mouthing my video, so I appreciate that, but they didn't like the episode. They thought it was, maybe too cloying or trying too hard or whatever. And I will admit, as well written as it was, and I did love it, you could maybe say that, okay, they were really, trying to push a certain issue and whatever. I liked it. It worked for me. But this seemed so natural, this conversation between the two of them. And I definitely teared up. I got emotional in this when they were talking about, the loss of Roseanne and possibly Chuck losing Anne Marie. And of course, there's a nice joke where Chuck's like, shouldn't you be saying like, hey, like she's going to make it. It's going to be okay. Rather than all this sort of down stuff. But it was a really, really great conversation. I'm glad they had it. And a lot of really, I think, good sort of mirroring of real life here for a lot of people. There are a lot of men, certainly in this age group, that do not want to reach out for help. I just kind of talked about that. But in addition to that, there's a thing of, people losing their spouse, their best friend in the world of decades, right? And when that happens, they don't know what to do. And if they don't have a nice family and friend unit helping them out, it can get real dark and real bad. So I love that they sort of, and again, it isn't as obvious as maybe Triggered was. That was sort of a one issue centric episode. But this seemed very natural as well. And wrung some emotions. And I didn't expect that just one episode after Triggered. I thought this would be, especially from the very opening, they were doing this like kind of funny cold open about the table and everybody's elbows sort of bumping into each other. So, okay, let's move the left-handers on this side, the right-handers on this side. And it was kind of funny, so I thought it was going to be a more lighthearted episode all the way through. And that scene really got me. So kudos to the writers on that and to James Pickens and John Goodman as well for acting it. So love that part. Other than that, we actually did see DJ in this episode. He's in one scene in the beginning, in the breakfast scene, or dinner, I don't know, I forget what meal they were eating, and then he comes in towards the end as well. So 2 DJ moments in the same episode. We hardly ever get that. Again, the guy can't act. We know this. God bless, but he's a better director. Let him direct some more episodes. I know that they want to keep him part of the family unit, and that's fine, but he's in like 3 episodes a season, so I don't quite see the point. But it was nice that he sort of thanked everybody for helping Mary through the school shooting incident the other week. So sort of touching a little bit on, okay, yes, that did happen. That's in continuity with the series, But the meat and potatoes, certainly, of this episode is the stuff with Becky and Glenn, which I'm fine with. And I think there was some comedy with his writer's block and all of that. Dan sort of mentioning, how many middle-aged boyfriends of my daughters have to be living here, that kind of thing. So that was funny. Overall, I thought this was another very good episode. I don't think it was quite up to Triggered, but that one scene alone certainly puts it up there for me in that regard. MVP for the episode, I'm gonna say I could go either way, John Goodman or really James Pickens Jr. on it, but I think we'll stick with some of the core group, and I will say the MVP of this episode is John Goodman for sure. So all right, that will do it. Oh, I got to grade it, I guess. Yes, we can't forget that. I'm going to give this episode, which again is called Messy Situation, Miscommunication, and Academic Probation. It gets an A minus from me. So we do have another new episode next week. After that, I'm not sure, but we're up to, next week will be episode 16. So like I said, we're going to get, I think, between 18 and 20. But I'm not positive to how many we're getting yet. But my guess would be 20. That's what we got last season, I believe. And again, that's what Home Economics is getting this year, and the Wonder Years, which bookend the show. So it makes sense. So all right, thank you for watching. We'll see everybody next time. Bye.